Although I am involved with CADAC, the Center of ADHD Awareness Canada, the views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the participants and do not reflect those of CADAC. And now, cue the music.
This is the Impulsive Thinker Podcast, a show for high-achieving ADHD entrepreneurs. Together, we will inform and educate you about how to improve your self-awareness while developing systems, routines, and habits for conquering the entrepreneurial world. Here is your host, André Brisson.
Hey there, it's André here with another short for the Impulsive Thinker Podcast, the podcast for the high-achieving ADHD entrepreneur. This episode is brought to you by CADAC, the Center of ADHD Awareness Canada. You can get more information and you can donate at www.caddac.ca. I want to talk to you about something I've been thinking about for a while called boredom and sabotage. And to be clear, self-sabotage is actually what I'm referring to with sabotage. One of the biggest insights I got after my diagnosis and with time and talking and learning more about ADHD is that when I get bored, that is when I get myself into trouble. And I mean lots of trouble. Either it's teasing people, a lot more fidgeting, impulsive releasing of words and thoughts outside voice that gets me in trouble. And that got me to thinking more. And the one thing I did realize, one thing that happened to my first company and to the bad partnership I got to had everything to do with boredom and this self-sabotage. Just want to recap here. So when I get bored, that means I've lost interest when there is no longer a challenge, when it's no longer novel, and worst of all, when there's no urgency. The further away it is, the more bored I will get about the task probably because it's so far away that I don't need to worry about it. And I have to do something to appease my dopamine lacking brain and motivation. So I just want to recap here. When I started Jade Engineers, my first engineering company in 2007, it was a fantastic time at the startup stage. Why? Because it was novel. It was a new startup. I was building something. My wife was 6 months pregnant with our first kid. We just blew all of our savings on renovating a new house we just bought. So it was novel, something new. And it was a challenge because I had to build a niche entrepreneurial engineering company that said it can't be done. It was challenging because I had to make sure I was able to feed my wife and my unborn child. And it was also interesting because of the challenges and what was new, what I had to learn business side, where I can expand and grow. So I had a lot of interesting opportunities down the road, and I was no longer withheld to do things that were interesting. Ultimately, let me tell you, it was urgent because I had to make money. I had to pay for the new house we just bought, repay the renovations we just paid for, and also, like I said, to feed my wife and my unborn child. The urgency was there to succeed. I had no choice. So guess what? After a year, I was saying, hey, I can make enough money to support my family, but I didn't want to just do that. I wanted to grow and build a team. So within a year after that, I moved into an office setting and started hiring people. And let's talk about 6-7 years down the road. Look, I had a successful niche entrepreneurial engineering company. I had staff, I had constant revenue, I had great referrals, and I was constantly slowly building up the company. So what happened? Well, all of a sudden, people started getting stupid. The staff, clients, suppliers, everyone around me just started getting stupid. And I had to fix all their problems. All the projects were all of a sudden no longer going well. All of a sudden, clients were complicating projects where they never did in the past. And just new problems kept cropping up that I had to immediately and urgently solve. Now, why would that happen? I never understood this until about 6-7 years later, until I got diagnosed and started to realize what was going on. What happened was I got bored with my company once it was successful and steady. It was no longer in startup mode. I had to weekly accept projects coming in with no effort, to keep executing and reviewing projects that were not having problems. We were delivering things on time. We were getting new referrals and not having to really convince the clients, those potential new clients, they need to sell us, they were already sold. It was boring. That's what happened. It was boring. So where did all these problems occur? Where did all these problems come from all of a sudden? Well, there's a term, I forget who said it, but there's a term I like. And he goes, when there's a bunch of fires, when you're an entrepreneur, when there are a bunch of fires, you should look in the mirror first and find out who the arsonist is. And with that phrasing, when those problems started occurring with Jade Engineers, it was because I was setting up those fires. I was creating drama. I was creating the situation. I was creating the problems so I can have a problem to urgently solve, so I can have a new challenge and make it interesting again. It was me trying to kickstart my brain. I was trying to force myself to stay 100% and working like everyone else, and it didn't work. So I sabotaged the success of that company. I started losing staff. I started losing clients, big clients. Suppliers didn't want to deal with us. And I'm really fortunate to still have the one person that was with me back then still with me. So I got bored. So during that time of the upheaval and the apparent people's stupidity, I was approached by a company. They wanted my expertise and my ability to turn things around with the industry that they were in, that I started in, and decided to go in partnership with them. But deep down in my gut, I knew it wasn't right. But I decided to go with it anyways. And man, was it the worst mistake of my life. I ended up losing Jane Engineers. Had some very skillful gaslighters, motivators. My problem with that partnership was I fixed everything that they needed fixing in 6 months rather than the 5 years apparently everyone else should have taken. It was very bad. That's where I started. That was my life tempest. You know, my undiagnosed symptoms took over. The emotional dysregulation was paramount. And people just kept poking and prodding me to the point where I said, I can't do this or I'm going to die. So I left. And then, of course, thinking down, once I realized about what the relation between boredom and sabotage, I got into this bad partnership subconsciously, knowing it wasn't going to go well, because I was bored with Jade Engineers because it was successful and I needed a new challenge. I needed something else that was novel, something that would keep me interested. And it was a big challenge to fix what they wanted me to fix. And I created an urgency that this list of 20 things need to be fixing. Instead of taking 5 years, I did it in 6 months. I created this urgency. So I got bored with my first company, started creating problems. And then I got into a bad partnership so I can do something new and novel. And I think this is something we got to be aware of, especially as entrepreneurs, is once we build, if not all of us are geared for a startup. There's a lot of us that likes to go and take an existing company and fix it, but they already have a basis. I really like to start something from nothing. I just like to take the hard road and the difficult road. I don't know. But for me, I like to start up. Some people like to take over companies. Some people like to take a company and make it excel 10 times more rather than start up. So for me, starting up is the best thing to do. And once the company got to a growth stage and a success stage, I got bored. Now, hindsight's 2020. What I should have done then was, hey team, we are doing great. You guys are fantastic. It was a great team. I wish I could have back again. And here, you guys keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to refine. I'm going to do less projects and I'm going to start tackling passion projects, some side projects that can keep me interested, keeping me away from the boredom of that company. So I could have, started Tactical Breakthroughs then. I could have started a different side business. I could have just, changed my role in the company. Could have done that too. What I would like you to pay attention to here and learn from this is if you sense that you're getting bored, or all of a sudden there's a bunch of mistakes and problems created and you're not too sure where it came from, take a look at yourself. Are you bored with the company, with your company at this point? Are you bored with your role? Is the company in a boring state? How can you relocate yourself, rejig your position, change how you do it, or maybe start doing side projects that's outside of your current company so that your interest is still there. You still have a new challenge. You got something novel to work on. And then the urgency is there to just create something while you're still trying to manage your other company. Or these projects can be all within the company as well. So remember, our brains like things when it's novel, challenging, interesting, and urgent. And we still need to keep our entrepreneurial journey along those lines so that we can keep interested and we do not self-sabotage ourselves. Can you give me an example of when you think you actually self-sabotage your company and your growth? I'd like to hear about that. If you can send me an email, andre@andreb.ca, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Impulsive Thinker podcast. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion for the show, please visit theimpulsivethinker.com. The Impulsive Thinker podcast is produced by Tactical Breakthroughs and hosted by André Brisson. Remember, ADHD is only a part of you, not all of you.